think let us start with Jesse. Um, you tend to see businesses across large value chains, and just to sort of say, sometimes sustainability, there's focus on extraction, but when we say value chain, you need to take the manufacturing and the recycling side of it as well. And Jesse, we are seeing more cases. We are seeing more people saying, hey, look at what we're doing, and we have a certificate, and yay, all is good. Has implementation sort of gaining momentum now? And are we moving away from this corporate policy? Here's a nice document, but here's an actual example. Are we seeing an increase in implementation of responsible sourcing practices?
To start on a controversial note, I would say no. So I think we're still very much at the pretty document stage and not anywhere near enough on the implementation stage. I think there's more attention right now on implementation. And I think that has certainly been overlooked as a critical part of due diligence. But our research from the Resource Centre shows that there's still a really significant gap between policy and implementation, and that's along the value chain, as you just mentioned, Masuma. Just yesterday, the Resource Centre released its 2021 update to our Transition Minerals Tracker. And this monitors human rights allegations in 6 key commodities for the energy transition, many of which have been mentioned here. So copper and lithium, nickel, zinc, manganese, and I forgot my last one, but 6 of them. And so these minerals are all really critical, not just to electric vehicle batteries, but to solar panels, to wind turbines. And we've recorded almost 500 allegations of human rights violations since 2010. And in 2021, we recorded 61 new allegations. Now, from that 500, 12 companies are responsible for 70% of those allegations. And these are big name companies. This is your Glencore, your BHP, your Anglo American. And these companies have really solid policies. They have policies on human rights, on sustainable sourcing, on supply chain due diligence. And so we know that what's happening at the head office and what is imagined there is just not making its way down to the ground still. That gap between policy and on the ground practice is still very much in place. And for us, we still feel that the focus has to be on how that's being transferred down to the ground. That implementation side still has a lot of work to be done.
Lots of implementation work to be done. And that sort of, Rebecca, that kind of falls into your domain then, because we're seeing more and more companies, mine sites, signing up to the IRMA initiative. What sense are you getting from clients? Is this because somebody made a policy and they said, oh, how are we going to do this? Or is there another driver that's getting more and more companies and mining sites to sign up for IRMA?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when we think about IRMA, Stephanie gave this great overview that it's a multi-stakeholder system. And I think it's helpful to understand who are all of the stakeholders at the table when we speak about IRMA's 6 houses. And she spoke about the governing authority, right? That it's multi-stakeholder governance. So I think it's important to know who's at the table. And I sort of frame it as there's 3 corporate sectors and 3 sort of non-corporate sectors at the table. So you have mining, purchasers of mined materials, and investors are all at the table. And then you also have communities that are impacted by mining, NGOs, whatever they might be focusing on, social or environmental topics or others, governance topics, and then labor. Those are all represented around the IRMA table. And they all sort of work together in terms of motivating mines to come in and be assessed in IRMA. So when we think about civil society, right, communities and NGOs, they're calling for better mine practices and calling for change in the sector, as Jesse pointed out, how needed that is. And that call for change is really being heard, especially by purchasing companies, so consumer-facing brands that think about their customers. They also think about regulation. They think about leadership in this space. How do we actually change our sourcing? And to the topic at hand, how do we change the impact that we actually have? And so through civil society saying things need to be done differently, purchasers are hearing that and saying, okay, how do we do our purchasing differently? And so they are actually asking their mining suppliers, please come in, be assessed against IRMA, let us understand what are the practices at the mine site, how can we work together to help you change, right, as a mining supplier? And that's really, I would say, the main driver that we're seeing mining companies coming into IRMA is from the request of the purchasing sector. And what I mean by that is auto companies, tech companies, jewelry companies who are reaching out and saying, we would like you to be assessed in IRMA. And so, and then I'll just say from a mine site's perspective, the reason that they would come in, we often hear about audit fatigue, right? And that a mine site is asked to undergo so many audits throughout the year. And the idea of IRMA being so comprehensive in terms of the detail of the requirements and also the topics that we cover. We really cover every topic when it comes to mining. So the idea would be that a mine site, if they come into IRMA, would have a whole range of data and information and objectively verified information that they can share with those who are then asking them to undertake an audit. So the hope is that over time you get a reduction in audit fatigue as well from a mine site's perspective.
Oh, that would be so nice, Rebecca, if I can write a report 3 years from now and I don't have to quote 60 audits out there. That would make my life easier as well. But it's interesting about this purchaser-driven, investor-driven idea, which brings me to Olivia, who is an engineering, well, you're an engineer with environmental and sustainability at your core, but that's what you're thinking. My question to you is, when you were developing this process of recycling, where is the drive coming from? Is it your managers calling you in and saying, we need to get this done? Is this a business initiative? Or were there purchasers and investor pressure also involved in Qubits sort of saying, we need to do this?
That's a good question. Yes. No, it was like the motivation to change something. I mean, we had an easy way to recycling batteries, to put them in a bin and send it and burn the batteries, but it just felt wrong to do it. So Martin Kiewitz, the CEO of the company, he liked the challenge to find new ways to solve problems in an environmental friendly way. And this challenge and motivation, this is the results that we have at the moment. Yes, exactly.
Olivia, not for you to give away any business secrets. Did you have an unlimited fund to come up with this?
I had like a budget, and
Okay.
with this budget, yes, but yes, Martin puts a lot of budgets in innovation. So
Okay, so business leadership and CEO sort of the top-down approach of saying we need to get this done.
Exactly.
Okay, good to hear. Matthias, but you've been part of the resourcing project, and I'm sure there's a part of you that is also tired of constantly hearing about the extraction-related issues. And I'm not saying those issues aren't important, but we keep sort of saying, what about the rest of the value chain? Your own speciality is towards the circular economy and recycling side of things. Do you think people actually understand that responsible sourcing within the recycling end is also an important aspect? And are we paying enough attention to implementation on that side?
It actually starts with the word extraction. You said I'm tired of just focusing on extraction. No, I'm not tired, because in my world, actually, when we talk about recycling, this is also extraction. But that's the thing which is not understood probably when we talk about the extractive industry. Of course, I'm aware of that. We are thinking about the primary mining industry. But in the end, it's all about raw materials. And in a world where we have a transition to circular economy, and we actually intend to shift from primary raw materials to keep these raw materials in the loop, actually, it doesn't really matter anymore where we extract these materials from. So for me, it should be obvious that we have to include the secondary raw material stream in our thinking now, not later, once we have solved the primary mining issue. So it has to actually be included now. So the mindset has to change. And I think it hasn't changed yet, to be honest. I mean, it's also understandable, of course. I mean, we're coming from another side, but now with the whole discussion of the circular economy, I think it has to change at the policy level that we're talking about. We have to extract raw materials, be it primary or secondary, in a responsible way. And when we start to change this thinking, we will not have this discussion anymore.